Lively Minds is a UK-based podcast about mental health challenges that go beyond the ebb and flow of the everyday.
Coming up in Season 1, Ellie and I talk about what we mean by mental illness.
There are states of mind, and I would describe myself as probably mentally unwell in those specific states. I don't think that any of my diagnoses mean that day to day I'm mentally unwell. And that's why this podcast is so interesting. We have different views about it.
In the early days, I found that doctors were keen not to medicalise the problems that I was experiencing. The trouble is that it's a very fine line between not medicalising and pigeonholing people on the one hand, but on the other hand, couching it in non-medical terms. Everybody has these issues. If everyone's got these issues, why do I find myself keeping on needing to go back to the doctor?
Dolly Sen asks to what extent mental illness even exists.
We will label you and punish you, and it has been true of women in Victorian times who were labelled as hysterical. Being gay was a mental illness until the early 70s.
Clinical Psychologist Karen Lowinger talks to us about high-functioning mental health problems.
And they come in their dresses and their makeup or in their suits and ties, but they sit down and they break down.
Professor William Tov talks about the definition of happiness.
There's no one way to measure this thing called happiness. It's something similar to when we talk about health. There's no one way to be healthy. It's the same thing with happiness.
Therapist Stuart Ralph talks about one of the most misunderstood mental health problems, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder.
These people on the show loved cleaning, whereas someone with contamination OCD in the traditional sense, they're only doing it because they're so deeply afraid that their world is going to collapse.
Rabbi Robyn Ashworth-Steen chats to us about how mental health intersects with spirituality and gender.
One of my favourite writers, Audre Lorde, said that the phrase should be "I feel, therefore I can be free," instead of "I think, therefore I am." And that for me really sums up how I want to live in the world and what good mental health is like.
Jake Dunn discusses men's mental health groups and the responsibility of communities to look after each other's mental well-being.
People have got to embrace the social responsibility and start to provide services voluntarily for people that they can access instantly.
Lively Minds, the mental health podcast, is coming soon.
Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.